everybody, this is Cups bringing another Monster Hunter World Iceborne video, and I know we just made the video just the other day with the Kjarr Charge Blades, but we've also been playing around with a lot of Insect Glaives, and it's kind of a highly requested thing on stream and in the comments and stuff like that, where people are wanting to see the Kjarr Insect Glaives. So I made sure to also get all the Insect Glaives that I could and then max them up and all that stuff. I've been grinding a lot of mats and what have you, and going through my research points kind of a lot, but I'm here to talk to you guys today about the Insect Glaives and the ones that drop from MR Kulve Taroth, and which ones I think are worth your time and which ones aren't, and maybe some interesting sets to play around with. Some are going to be highly meta, high damaging, and some of them are going to be a bit more multiplayer friendly in case that's the type of way that you like to play. But starting off, I feel like overall the Insect Glaives that drop from Kulve Taroth are pretty good. I guess I'll say they seem to be as comparable, from all my testing and everything like that, they seem to be as comparable as the Safi'jiiva Insect Glaives were, except now you also get health boost on top of, or not health boost, health regen augment on top of it. In particular matchups where a monster is very, very weak to a specific element, you're going to be seeing a lot of value out of these Insect Glaives. And if you didn't get them before from Safi, these are pretty much, you know, lateral changes, maybe 5% in either direction, but they seem to be pretty similar in the testing that I did with 3-piece Safi sets and Master's Touch and all this other stuff. But it all, right now, Insect Glaive seems to be in a pretty balanced place. Besides the Light Break, the Raging Brachydios Insect Glaive seems to be kind of just a little bit ahead of everything else. And I think for this crop of Insect Glaives that have come out, I think the real standout is the Kjarr Water Insect Glaive, and which is the one that I have on right now. Tons of damage, 915, 10% affinity, and the way that I have it augmented out, 750 element, and also the Kinsect bonus of the element boost for your bug is also really nice. So you can go up to manage Kinsects, Kinsect element, and then whatever elemental bug that you're using, but you can go ahead and put elements on there and then get the elemental boost from your Kinsect as well. And here's the set that I was running with it, just to show you guys. I'll go through all these again at the end, but whenever the Safi'jiiva set kicks in, I'll go ahead and show you with pose. You can check your weapon pose here, and it'll show you how much element you're going to get, as well as the crit. So 830 water element, so this is going to trash monsters that are really weak to water. Brute Tigrix, Abneo Dokuron, Teostra, stuff like that. It's a very, very strong weapon, and it seems to be the standout of this crop. And there's also the Paralysis one that's pretty good as well. Decay I feel is really, really underpowered, just too low of raw. It's got a decent amount of white, it's got a decent amount of dragon. Everything is like okay, and then dragon is not a very good element right now. It's good for like Safi'jiiva, I guess, if you want to try something like that. But there's not a lot of monsters that are really weak to dragon, I guess, like Rathians and Pink Rathians and stuff like that. But in most situations, I think you could probably just use the Raging Brachydios Insect Glaive and go just as far. Spark, I think, is kind of interesting because Spark has a good amount of raw attack, good amount of affinity, a lot of thunder, and you could also do something like this. I used this one against Nargacuga, and it seemed to be pretty much tie with the Raging Brachy Insect Glaive. And then also, like, when he's enraged and stuff like that, he's taking more damage, more elemental damage. It's just kind of hard to test exactly because a lot of the Insect Glaives moves have higher raw multipliers than others, so you can't really take things like Tornado Slash because that does more raw damage than does more elemental damage. So it seems like it's about even, because whenever you're doing like the normal little quick swings with Insect Glaive, you're doing more damage with Thunder, but on the big hits like the Dive and Tornado Slash, you're doing more damage with raw. So this one seems to be about the same. So I wouldn't really recommend this unless you're like an Insect Glaive main and you want to play around with some more Thunder element and stuff like that. You could do like a 5-piece Safi and just stack a whole bunch of Thunder and go crazy if you want to do that. But Ice, I feel like Ice is a little underpowered as well. This one isn't augmented all the way up. I had to use the augments on a different one. Okay, raw, a lot of white, so I don't think with this weapon you necessarily need to get Master's Touch or Razor Sharp or something like that. You might be able to just, you know, use your Wetfish Fin pluses and keep this up to white because it's got a big healthy group of white. So that's kind of nice. You'll be able to fit in some damage in other places. You could do things more like Peak Performance and Agitator and Attack Boost and all kinds of stuff like that. Here's King, the fire one. This one was actually really effective against Velkhana. Velkhana takes a lot of fire damage, so that was kind of my main testing subject for this one. You hate to see the Sever boost. Kinsect bonus is not necessarily very strong. A lot of fire, good affinity, so you can stack even more raw and even more fire. So this one seemed to outperform it seemed to outperform the Raging Bracky Insect Glaive in some situations, but then you throw the blast procs of the Raging Bracky on top, and it probably pushes that one a bit above this one as well. So I don't know if I can really recommend this one unless you're an Insect Glaive main and you kind of want to play around with it a little bit. Crusher is pretty bad. Crusher is really bad and has no business being even talked about in comparison to Raging Bracky. So I wouldn't really worry about that one. The Paralysis is also, I think, is pretty interesting. This one's pretty cool. It's got good raw. Paralysis is kind of whatever, you know what I mean? You don't really need that much paralysis to get 2 to 3 paralyses, I guess, per hunt against particular monsters if they're very weak to paralysis. This is a fantastic Insect Glaive to use for more multiplayer type of play. And actually, I think monsters that are pretty weak to paralysis, you can really put in a lot of work with this thing. I don't know if it's going to compete with like Raging Bracky if you're doing super duper try hard speed runs, but this thing is actually worth picking up, I think, especially again if you're like an Insect Glaive main. So the ones that I'm really going to recommend from this batch are Water and Paralysis. And I think those are the ones that you kind of really want to pick up. And I think Paralysis is going to be pretty good for things like the Guiding Lands and stuff like that as well. Kind of more casual play. But Water is definitely worth it on its own. So I would definitely try to pick up that one. And, you know, use your points for that one. I put a couple aside here, and I wanted to kind of grasp all of the levels of play that we have that play Monster Hunter, because not everybody wants to do super duper tryhard speed runs, and not everybody wants to do group multi hunts and stuff like that. Okay, so here's the set for the Para Insect Glaive, and this is the one that I'll probably be using in my multiplayer hunts on stream or whatever it is if I just want to do something a bit more casual. And this one has Crit Eye 7, Agitator 7, Health Boost 3, Crit Boost 3, Weakness Exploit 3, Flinch Free 3, and I wanted to bring this one up in particular. I could probably do a little bit more information about this one if you guys are confused, but not a lot of people know this because it says here on the description that Flinch Free increases some Kinsect extract effects. And not a lot of people know what that means because they don't do a good job of explaining it. But whenever you have red, white, and orange, you enjoy Earplugs 3, Tremor Resist 3, and Windproof 3. So that's something that's really, really nice whenever you have those three. And these are also additive. So as you can see below, I put Earplugs 2 on. So whenever I have red, white, and orange extracts, I have the equivalent of Earplugs 5. Which is really nice. So you can also do that with Windproof 2 or something like that. And whenever you have all your extracts, you're kind of a tank. Like you fly through the air, nothing's sniping you out. You don't get tremored by enemies like Jang punches. It stops you from getting flinched by your teammates as well. It's a super comfy skill, and it's really, really value for how easy it is to put in. And then also the airborne skill, I kind of hear this brought up a lot. On some of the attacks, the ones that you're going to see a lot of benefit from airborne are your triangle attacks in the air, the ones that you spin to the side. The circle attacks, where you're kind of doing the attack helicopter kind of thing, that actually only has one move that does mounting damage, and that's not going to be very good you're not going to get to enjoy airborne from that attack. And then most importantly, not a lot of people know this as well because you can't mount from it. But the descending thrust, the first hit of it, gets the benefit of using airborne. So that's an attack that can hit for 400 damage, and you're adding a 30% damage boost on top of it. So it's outstanding, and I think that you should probably use it in more situations than not. And even if you're doing super try-hard speedrun type stuff, if it's a dive-heavy matchup like a Velkhana or maybe a Teostra or a Nergigante or something like that, I think airborne is actually worth it in those kind of matchups as well. And of course the crit status on top. So this has a ton of survivability, has a ton of damage, has the great utility of flinch free, airborne on top of it, as well as a crit status. You should be able to get a good amount of, it's got crit status, and if you're critting 100% of the time plus, then you're going to be getting a lot of paralysis off as well, so your teammates can sit there and wail on them. You might be kind of overcapping on crit a little bit because I'm at 50% resting, so whenever the monster's agitated, you're going to get an additional 20% crit, so you'll be at 70%. So with weakness exploit, you'll be at 100%, and then whenever you are hitting weak points, you'll be at 120%. But you're not always hitting weak points on monsters, especially in multiplayer. Sometimes you're hitting back legs, sometimes you're hitting wings, sometimes you're hitting tails and stuff like that. So this is really nice. You'll be able to get the 100% crit no matter where you're hitting. Okay, so this is a set that I was going to use. This is the one that I recommend for using water. And if I were going to go for some sort of world record type run against like Brute Tigrix or Teostra or something like that, this would be most likely the set that I would use. And this one has Agitator 7, Water Attack 6, Resentment 5, Critical Boost 3, Weakness Exploit 3, Evade Window 3, Item Prolonger 3, Recovery Up 2, Blight Resistance, that just comes with it, Protected Polish, and Critical Element on top. And it says 3-piece Safi with 2-piece Prakidios. So whenever your weapon is out, you're going to have even higher stats than you did before. So 830 water with 30% affinity. Then whenever the monster's agitated, you'd be at 50%. And then with weakness exploit, another 50%. Now this set is going to be assuming that I'll be hitting weak points at all times. And if I make some sort of mistake or something like that, I'll be resetting. And so this is about as efficient as it gets. And I'll go ahead and explain some of my decisions here. This one has agitator 7. So basically, whenever you start a fight with a monster, you want to clutch claw to the head, spin it 3 times, and then do your tenderize attack, and that will instantly enrage the monster and tenderize it. So that's basically what you're going to be doing a lot with Insect Glaive speedruns, so you'll be able to enjoy agitator pretty much all the time. Some of the big question marks on this one, perhaps for some of you, is resentment. Resentment gives you additional raw damage whenever you have red life to yourself, and Safi Jiva, every time you attack the monster, it gives you red life, so you pretty much are always going to have resentment up. Now in a set like this, I can't recommend that you're going to be using health regen augment on your weapon, because the more lifesteal that you get, you won't be able to enjoy resentment. Sometimes you'll be at full life all the time and you won't be able to, so resentment is just taking up slots for no reason. You typically want to use health regen augment whenever you're doing something like peak performance. And also evade window is kind of cool, because not a lot of people know this, but your dash in the air with Insect Glaive, the X button, has a small amount of invulnerability frames in it, so you can actually dodge through attacks and roars and stuff like that while you're in the air. If you have a evade window, will make it a bit easier. It's kind of tough otherwise. Item prolonger kind of goes in correlation with protected polish. Not a lot of people know that as well. Whenever you use a wet fish or a wet stone or a wet fish fin or something like that, it's an item that you're actually using. So the protected polish that you get gets amplified with item prolonger. So it makes the protected polish last even longer. Now this doesn't have master's touch or any kind of sharpness maintenance, so I'll be using wet fish fin pluses to sharpen. Go for 90 seconds plus, and then do it again whenever the monster's downed or something like that, just to keep as much sharpness as I can at all times. And that's also really nice for things like demon powders and might seeds, because you'll be keeping those buffs for longer periods of time, so you can continue to do more damage. So item prolonger goes really, really nicely in a set like this. And then also the critical element on top. And whenever you're hitting for 830 element with the monster agitated and resentment up, you're going to be doing a truckload of damage. But you can also use elemental boost on this one to make sure that you're putting water or ice, whatever, either or, on your bug, so that you're getting as much elemental damage as possible, which is really nice. I like this set a lot, and if you want to try it, it's going to be very difficult. It's kind of more advanced, and like I said, recovery up. Let me explain that a little bit. Recovery up, I explained it a little bit in my last video, but whenever you get the health boost back, you hit the monster a couple times, and the Safi set will suck life away from you, and then after you hit a certain hit threshold, you'll gain a bunch of life back. So recovery up amplifies those effects so that you get 10-20% extra. This is my Blast Master Touch Insect Glaive set using the Raging Bracky. Now this isn't a Kjarr weapon, but I wanted to show you guys a potential set that you could be using for this one. This is a very, very strong Insect Glaive, and if you haven't gotten it yet, I recommend that you get it. And this Raging Bracky Insect Glaive is going to be good against pretty much every monster. Like if you're not necessarily an Insect Glaive main, or you're kind of more of a casual player or something like that, you could basically just get this Insect Glaive and call it a day, because it'll be pretty equally effective against everything. But this one has attack boost 7, crit eye 7, agitator 7, blast attack 4, crit boost 3, weakness exploit 3, peak performance, and then heat guard as well. And this has the master's touch, so you'll be able to keep it. Doesn't have very much purple. It's got like 20 units of purple or something like that, so the master's touch will help you keep that for a long time. This is kind of more for solo play. Solo semi speed running type set. This is probably something I'd use against like a Nergigante or something like that, where I'm doing a lot of blast attacking and things like that, and Nergigante's down for a really long time, so I will have health regen on this one so that I get to enjoy the peak performance at all times, and just a ton of damage, ton of crit. Nothing really much to this one. It's very, very nice. Agitator secret, master's touch. So this would be one that I would recommend for general all-purpose use. Feel free to take a couple levels of attack boost and crit eye off if you want to put things like health boost and divine blessing or fortify or whatever it is that you're using. But this is also a very, very strong competitive set. And what's also important about this one is that it has the spirit and strength boost on the Kinsect bonus. If you see this one, this is the one that you probably want all the time. Now this is really nice whenever the monster drops pods or you pick up pods off the ground. So if you pick up a monster pod, it gives you the red boost. Whenever you buff your bug, you can push L2, triangle and circle, and your person will like feed slinger ammo to the bug. and it'll give it either a red buff or a yellow buff. And red is strength, which gives it 50% extra damage, and then stamina, which lets the bug stay out longer without having to come back. So you can, with spirit and strike boost, whenever you use either or, red is usually just the monster pod, and then yellow is typically the environmental thing. But this gives them both buffs, so they hit longer and harder. So this is a very, very good Insect buff, and this is what you should be looking for most of the time. So those are the sets that I wanted to show you. So I guess we'll kind of recap. We wanted to get the Kjarr Para and the Kjarr Water, and then also the Raging Bracky if you haven't gotten that one yet. But if you're an Insect Glaive man and you want to try around, they're all pretty dang good, honestly. They're all kind of worth getting in some way, shape, or form. I can't really recommend the Decay, again, unless you want to experiment with some other things. But I think Thunder is really strong. I think Ice is pretty good. I think Water is fantastic. Fire is pretty good in certain matchups as well. But those are the big three, the big two, I guess I'll say, Para and Water. So thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate you very much. So make sure that you leave a comment, subscribe. If you did enjoy the content, you can always catch me streaming daily, twitch.tv/Cups, where we play all Monster Hunter all the time. But thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.